Okay, starting with our vocab, decimals. I want you to write this down as we go over it together. But a decimal is a number that is written with a point between the part greater than what? What do you think? Somebody said it. Greater than.
The whole number?
Well, almost. Greater than 1. Okay? And the part less than 1. Don't get this confused with positive and negative numbers, because a decimal simply separates what's part of a whole and what's a whole. Think about money. If you have $1, that's going to be in your ones place. It's going to be to the left of the decimal. But think about if you only have 75 cents, that's not even a whole dollar, right? So it's less than 1, and that 75 cents is to the right of the decimal point. So that decimal point separates what is either equal to or greater than 1 and what is less than 1. Okay, again, not a negative, but just a value less than 1. Okay? Can somebody in your own words tell me what's the definition of place value? What you think?
The placing numbers.
Okay, the place where the number is, but take that one step further. Place value would not be just where it is, but what?
Like how much it's worth.
Bingo, how much it's worth. Okay, so the value of where the digit, which just means number, is in the number. So if I have a 5 in the ones place, what's its value? 5 ones is what? 5. Okay, but a 5 in the tens place is worth what? 50. And a 5 in the hundreds place is worth 500. So that place value changes because of where the digit's located. So the place value has to do with how much it's worth based on where it's located in the number. Okay? I'll give you a second. Make sure you get those copied down. We're going to talk about our place value chart. Okay? And this one has our decimal on it. And our decimal is going to separate those two sections. I'm going to move this up. I'm going to turn it sideways so we can write. Okay? What is directly to the left of our decimal point? The ones. Okay, so this is our ones place. Okay, we take it one step further. What's the next place? Tens, and then we go to hundreds. What about after hundreds? Thousands. Let me slide that down. The good thing about, remember I've told you math is all about patterns. So place value is another one of those patterns. How do I go from my ones place to my tens place? Times 10. How do I go from my tens to my hundreds? Times 10. Hundreds, thousands. Times 10. So then my last place value out here is? Well, it goes on for infinity, but I'm talking about the one we're dealing with would be what? 10,000. Okay? And then, of course, it would continue on. After 10,000 would be 100,000, then millions. And we go to 10 million, 100 million. It keeps repeating over and over. Right now, we're just going to focus on 10,000s. What word do you see with our decimal point? And. You now have permission to say the word and. Okay, because a decimal point means and. So if I have a number that looks like, let me show you this number. If I have a number that looks like this, how do I read that number?
405.
Oh, hold on. I heard the word and. But in math, the and means I have a decimal point. So when we read this number, we need to read it 405. No and, okay? Because that and means that there is now a decimal point. All right? So this number would look like 405. Now, when we read our decimals, we're going to read it. Let's go ahead and label our place value, then we'll come back and see how we read them. What is the next place directly after our decimal point? Tenths. Very good. You should have that TH in there. Why do we not have once?
Because it's wrong.
Because it's weird.
Hang on. Okay. You remember a second ago when we talked about how we multiply by 10? We have a number system, and I say that we named it this, or we use this because we have 10 fingers or 10 toes, but it's called the base 10 number system. It simply means that our numbers are based on the number 10. So if I'm multiplying by 10 every time to get larger, what's the opposite of multiplying?
Subtraction.
Dividing. So if I am coming backwards, I'm dividing by 10 every time. So if I have one whole, which is where I am here, and I divide it by 10, I get 10 little pieces. I've got one stick, I chop it up into 10 little pieces, and I have 10 tenths. That's why we can't have ones, because when we follow that pattern of our base 10 number system, we're only dealing with tenths. Okay? So what comes after our tenths? Hundredths. Very good. It's almost like our decimal point becomes a mirror, and our pattern flips. What's after hundredths? Thousandths. And after thousandths? 10,000ths. Awesome. And again, this one will continue on for infinity as well. So that would be 100,000ths. Then we go to millions, then 10 millions, then 100 millions. But right now, we're just focusing on 10,000ths, okay? Now, when we read a decimal, I have a little poem, and it says, first you say the name as if there were no dot, then you say the name of the last place value spot. So if we were to look at just this number, okay, so I'm going to read that decimal, that 0.25. How would I read that as if there's no decimal? What would we call that number? 25, right? Okay. But now we're looking at the last place value spot. Where's the last place it's in? So it's 25 hundredths. So you read the number as if there is no decimal. Then you find the name of the last place value spot. So don't worry about the whole number here. Someone read that decimal, just that decimal. What would you get?
2,500.
No, the next one. We did 2,500. So what would the next one be? So read it first as if there's no place value or no dot. 1,068. Then what do we say? 10,000ths. So we would read this as 1,068 10,000ths. Okay? What about this one? Izzy?
79,000.
Perfect. So you're going to read the number as if there's no decimal there at all, like just a regular number. But then you're going to name it by the last place it stops in. This decimal gives me permission to say what? And. So we would read this one as 3 and 25 hundredths. 145 and 1,068 10,000ths. 24 and 79,000ths. Okay? So that's how you read your decimals. All right, adding and subtracting, which is what we're going to focus on today. There's one super important rule that we can never forget. What is that super important rule?
We always have, say, there's like, for example, number 3.
All right, hold tight. We'll get to that one in just a second. What's my overall rule, Veronica?
You always have to line up the decimal.
Bingo. That's it. Right here next to the star. I want you to write line up decimals. In all caps. It's that important. Line up your decimals. Okay? We won't do that tomorrow when we multiply, but when we add and subtract, you have to line up your decimals. We have to add ones with ones, tenths with tenths. Okay? So let's set up this problem. We have 9 and 55 hundredths plus, I'm going to put my decimal first, 18 and 9 tenths. Is there anything else I need to do to that?
Yes.
What do I need to do?
You need to add a 0.
Perfect. Tack a 0 on right here on the end. Now, when I line up my decimals and go ahead and bring it down to my answer, guys, I should be able to circle them in a perfectly straight row. All right, what is 5 plus 0? 5. 9 plus 5?
14.
Okay, carry my 1. 9 plus 10? Oh, I just said the wrong thing. 9 plus 1?
18.
Plus 8, yeah, 18. You knew what I was thinking. And 1 plus 1 is 2. So we should have, somebody read this decimal for me the correct way. Hundredths, perfect. 28 and 45 hundredths. Yes, sir.
Can I get some more?
No. All right, number 2. Let's take a look at this one. So we have 93 and 5 tenths minus 79 and 17 what? What is that? 17 hundredths. Very good. So, bring my decimal down. I should be able to circle them in a perfectly straight line. I do have to tack on a 0 up here because I can't take 7 from space. Can I take 7 from 0? We've got to borrow. Okay, what is 10 minus 7? 4 minus 1?
3.
Okay, then can I take 9 from 3? Got to borrow. So that will become 14 and 33 hundredths. Okay, now, Grayson, what were you going to tell us about number 3?
Oh, I was going to say the rule was you have, since there's no decimal in the 29, you have to add a decimal and add 2 zeros to go in.
Perfect. Guys, that's what I like to call invisible math. It is always there, no matter what. Okay? So, if I have a whole number and there is no decimal, we have to remember there is always a decimal behind the whole number. If I were to write $29, I could write it like this, or I could write it just 29. That does not change the value. And there is a decimal always at the end of every whole number. Can I put it in the middle of a whole number? Like 2.9?
No.
No, because I just changed $29 to $2.90. So it's always at the end of the whole number. Yes, sir.
No matter how many zeros you add on number on the 29,
That's right.
it's still going to be the same value.
You're exactly right.
How many zeros you add.
All right, let's go ahead and subtract this. So we should have 13 and 58, what? Hundredths. Excellent. Okay, any questions so far on adding and subtracting decimals? Again, I hope this should be somewhat of a review. What's your number 1 rule we can't forget? Line up your decimals, guys. Super important. That is rule number 1. Line up your decimals.